This next lesson is going to be about character exploration. I'm going to share with you some of the character designs that I've developed for some of the books that I've worked on. So these were the character drawings that I did for Clyde the hippo. And in showing you the exploration process of these designs, I'm hoping to inspire you to do as many possible designs while you're exploring the main character for your fairy tale or your story. In these designs, I knew that I wanted to start off with a really simple shape, something that was kind of rounded and rectangular. And I started off with that, and I knew the basic elements of what a hippo looks like, so I made sure that I added the teeth and the nose and the ears, and I kind of played around with that. I played around with a character that was actually walking on all fours, and then I played around with the character that only walked on two legs. When you're going through the exploration of your character, you want to make sure that you're looking at visual references so you can figure out what the main characteristics are of that animal that make it identifiable. For the hippo, I knew that he needed to be big and soft and round, but I also wanted him to be cute. So I wanted to make sure that I drew him 2 heads high. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in character exploration when we're designing more characters. I wanted to keep the design really simple and clean. So these were some of the shapes that I started off with. And I really liked the sweeping line, but I wanted to make sure it worked from a front view. So from these, I ended up drawing this drawing here. And this was the drawing that I created that I actually fell in love with. When you're developing a character, it's really important to draw something that makes you feel an emotional reaction. When I drew this, I instantly fell in love with Clyde. I thought he was super adorable. And the emotional reaction I had was different than any other drawing that I'd ever drawn before. If you can have emotional reaction where you're laughing or repulsed or your heartstrings are pulled, that's a really good indication of a character that will be appealing to your readers. And from that, we got this. Here's some designs that I drew for another picture book idea that has still not been published. But for this story, I wanted to have a young little boy with textured curly hair. And so in this, you can see the different styles that I was kind of playing around with. I wanted to make sure he was young, so I made sure that his head was just about as big as his body. And I played around with different linear aspects for the hair, where I used coily, curly lines, kind of zigzaggy lines, little afros. And you can see how I kind of varied the shapes of the face, the shapes of the body, and how old he actually looks. I think these are all really cute and appealing. So when it comes down to it, the character that you choose has to be something that resonates with you and that you have an emotional reaction to. I think that's the best way to go. For this character design, I knew that I wanted to design a crab, but I wasn't sure which direction to go in. So these are my explorations of my characters. I wanted to make sure that it looked like a crab, so I gave it 6 legs and pinchers and the little eyes that kind of come up above the body. And in each of these different ideas, each one is an iteration from the previous drawing. So I started off with an oval shape. So as you're developing a character, it's really important to spend a lot of time because this is going to be the main interest in your story. And you want to make sure that your character is relatable to your readers. Anytime I do something different, like making the eyes different or making the legs different, everything else balances out. So when you adjust one thing, then you'll realize you need to change other things. And here I continue to develop the designs for the crab, really trying to keep it simple in terms of the shape of the body, the shape of the eyes, the shape of the pinchers. And I just continued to play with these designs and continued with these iterations. It's really important to know that when you're doing this, you may draw a bunch of things that you don't like at all, and that's totally fine. That's part of the process. But the important thing is to keep going. And the more you draw, the more chances that you'll draw something that you really like. It was right about here where I started to change the idea of the crab being on all 6 legs, close to the ground, being more upright. And this was a really important part of my process because that's kind of the direction I ended up going in. And it was right about here when I really started to go in the direction that I ended up in, where I started to elongate the crab. Not only that, you want to think about what your character is going to be doing in the story. And in this particular story, the crab was going to be doing things like walking around and holding a coffee cup, sitting at a kitchen table. And for that aspect, I thought, well, I can't really have a crab that's walking on 6 legs close to the ground, holding a coffee cup. So it needs to be more humanistic. So I started to go in that direction. And with this one, I thought, this is really cute, but does he really have to have all 6 legs? And when I switched from 6 legs to 2 and kept that same really simple shape, keeping the eye stalks and also keeping the pinchers, I thought this was something that was really interesting. So these are the characters I ended up creating. And once you have your main character, then you understand what the design aspect should look like for the rest of your characters. So once I had the main character, I was able to develop the secondary characters. So I'm about to show you the designs that I came up with for my Rapunzel fairy tale. So for my Rapunzel fairy tale, I knew that I wanted to have a young black girl. She had to have long hair, obviously, because it's Rapunzel, but her hair was going to be curly and textured. In my story, she's going to have a friend instead of a prince, and instead of a sorceress named Gothel, she'll have a mother. So these are the 3 characters for my story. And these are the designs that I came up with. Like I said, when you first start drawing, sometimes it gets really messy, and that's okay. It's really important to just jump into it and start with shapes. In these designs, I started with a circular shape for the head and a very simple pear shape for the body. But I thought, if this is a young girl, I don't know if she should have really big hips. I do want to make sure that I'm really careful in creating really varied characters, but I wasn't sure that that was quite it. So I pushed that and used more of an hourglass shape here, adding a little bit of attitude, and you can see the long hair that I've added. But here I thought, well, I don't know if she should be that shape either. So I kind of continue really rough, and I love using blue color erase pencils because you can get really light with your drawings, and you can see how I'm pushing a little bit harder, and I can get a little bit, using a little bit more pressure, I can emphasize my lines a little bit more. So here I'm just emphasizing the shapes that I used in the design process. And now what I'm doing is I'm starting to elongate my character, get a little bit taller with her. And oftentimes when I'm designing this quickly and roughly, I'll kind of abandon a sketch when I know that it's not working and then start on a new one. So that's why these are really rough. Here I wanted to try a triangular shape for a head and maybe just a bean shape for a body. And I added hair. Here's my idea of maybe adding a ponytail with some long hair coming out at the top. And then here I started again with the circle and the rectangle, your basic keyhole type of character. And you can learn more about character design in my character design course. that's offered through New Masters Academy. Here I thought, let's try and elongate her so you can see how my iteration is from taking this shape and pushing it a little bit taller. The whole important part of designing is starting off with one shape, and just every time you do a new iteration, you're varying that shape or the shape relationships to each other each time. Here I thought, well, let's try an 8 shape. And I kind of added some little buggy eyes. That didn't really work for me. But I did like this kind of sweeping rhythmic line of the arms here. I just continue on with these shapes, playing with the relationships until something really strikes me that I want to kind of develop a little bit more. Here I think I'll go ahead and start trying to do some action drawings or action poses. So to see what that might look like with keeping it simple and keeping a really curvilinear line for the hair. And now I'm starting to do some posing here. I'm making the body a little bit more triangular and keeping the head as a very simple circle shape. Each of these is just a new process or a new iteration where I'm just slightly varying things a little bit different, maybe adding some changes to maybe the facial features or for the body. And here now I'm starting to work a little bit more on the features and less on the body shape. I know that the hair has to be long, so I'm always adding some real simple long lines for the hair. And here I start to get a little bit more into the facial structure of her hair. And it seems at this point I'm kind of consistent with the length of the body or the proportion of the body to the head. And that I want her to be roughly around 11 years old or a tween. And here I think I'll try something a little bit different, and maybe instead of elongating the features, I'd widen the face out a little bit. So I add a lot more space between the eyes and the nose and just give her a little, just really keep the legs and the feet really simple at this point. So here now I'm starting to play with the expression or the pose. And now I'm thinking I definitely want to keep something that's circular for the head and a real simple pear shape for the body. And I start to play with the hair. And I think for the Rapunzel book that I'm working on, that the hair is going to be a lot of fun, especially for black hairstyles. There's so many, and I'm really excited to explore those in this book. So you can see that I'm starting to explore that here with what all this hair might look like if it were up, really big, just a big shape at this point, really rough. Maybe if she was washing her hair, what that might look like with a basket, or not a basket, but with a bucket and maybe some soapy water. And here I'm starting to go back to more of a cute character or younger character with a smaller body proportionate to the head. And now I'm going to a baby. So what would that look like? What would this character look like if she was a baby? How much hair would she have? Probably a lot of hair, okay? Now I'm starting to think of what the Rapunzel name means, and I discover that it actually is a purple flower called a rampion, and that's the origin of the name Rapunzel. So then I start thinking, I wonder if I can incorporate this flower or a design aspect of this flower into the design of the character. And so now I'm really just focusing on the face. I kind of have an idea that the body will be this type of shape, and now I'm exploring what the facial features might look like. I want her to be young and cute and soft and sweet. And it's right about here when I draw something that I really like. And now that I've decided that I like it, I can go back in with my mechanical pencil and clean it up. And you can see how there's kind of aspects of the design that I created that I omitted in the final cleanup sketch. I really like that shape of the pear that I drew, but I want to incorporate that into the costume. And I think that would be really fun, especially because we have kind of a heart shape for her head and then an opposing heart shape for her body. And I think that works really well. Coupled with the long textured curly hair, I think that would look really great as a silhouette. What I get to do now is figure out what the secondary character will look like. And now that I've got my main character designed, and I have a pretty good idea that she's going to look like this, now I can start to draw the secondary character.
There is a lot of value in online art education. We have so much great instruction on NMA that is so easily accessible. Even when I was in school learning to draw and paint, nothing was online. Wherever you are in the world, you can get this instruction. And not only can you watch these lessons that are so valuable and so in-depth and so passionately instructed, but you can watch them again and again and again.